In 1703, Louisiana, you can almost taste the air of salt water and damp pine. You're standing on the muddy banks of the Mobile River. It's quiet, not the quiet of peace, but a small, weary settlement trying to remember home. Suddenly, a group of men emerges from the fog. There are no flashing lights or towering floats. Instead, they march behind a wooden bull's head pushed on a cart. This is the Mardi Gras Society. They aren't throwing beads, they are defiant, celebrating a Fat Tuesday before the lean, somber days of Lent begin. It's small, it's rustic, and it's the first heartbeat of a tradition that refuses to stay small. The clock skips forward to 1890, and the silence is shattered. The smell of pine is replaced by the thick stench of horse manure, cheap gin, and gunpowder. You're in the French Quarter now. It's a fever dream. Gas lamps flicker against the sweat-slicked faces of thousands. Torches, flambeaux, are carried by men dancing through the streets, lighting up massive, precarious wooden floats that look like rolling cathedrals. The crowd is a sea of velvet and silk, but look closer, it's wild and it's dangerous. Men in heavy masks use the anonymity to settle old scores. The inappropriate is the status quo. It's a riot dressed in lace, a city letting out a year's worth of repressed screams in a single drunken night. Today, the chaos softens into a roar of joy. The smell of gin is gone, replaced by the sugary scent of the hot king cake and charcoal smoke from 1,000 sidewalk grills. You're on St. Charles Avenue. The sun is shining through the Spanish moss. You aren't ducking for cover, you're reaching up. A toddler perched on a wooden ladder beside you shrieks with delight as a plastic strand of purple beads drapes over their shoulders. The floats are now neon-lit giants, and the music is a wall of sound from high school marching bands that shakes the very pavement. This isn't a riot anymore, it's a family reunion. It's a million people sharing a collective breath of Les Bons Temps Roulés. From a lone bull's head to a global stage, this is the story of how a feast became a legacy. Welcome to Talk with History. I'm your host, Scott, here with my wife and historian, Jen.
Hello.
On this podcast, we give you insights to our history-inspired book travels, YouTube channel journey, and examine history through deeper conversations with the curious, the explorers, and the history lovers out there. All right, Jen, so there's no secret on this one. We did Mardi Gras.
We went to Mardi Gras.
We went to Mardi Gras and experienced Mardi Gras to the fullest that I can handle anyway.
Yeah, so we have friends who are part of crews. Like they're a part of these families that have established long-term traditions of being crews on different floats for different parades. And we'll talk about these parades, how they become traditional, their names, Iris, Bacchus, Endymion, Orpheus. There's these parades that happen, especially the last 5 days before Mardi Gras, which means Tuesday Fat Tuesday. So Mardi Gras means Fat Tuesday.
Yeah, and when you say cruise, it's not like the crew that you would spell C-R-E-W. It's K-R-E-W-E. So it is a very Louisiana, very New Orleans tradition.
Yeah, they're like these social clubs, basically, they call themselves, and they follow the same parade schedule, and it's a very elaborate thing that they do. They plan it all year long, and they plan their float theme and their throws. We'll talk more about those throws, and it's a big tradition. They wear masks. Again, it's that tradition of Mardi Gras mask, but basically it's this celebration leading up to Ash Wednesday. It's wrought in Catholicism, in the Christian tradition of sacrifice, of giving up something for Lent. And so it's this great celebration of abundance before the sacrifice starts.
Yeah.
So most of the time people would fast for Lent. And so this is like eating all of your good food and partaking of all your good drink before you go dry for Lent. And so it's supposed to be this great celebration of, all your blessings before Ash Wednesday starts, and then Lent for the 40 days before Easter. Now it shifts because Easter is kind of based on that big first full moon, the spring equinox in the year. And because that shifts, Mardi Gras shifts.
Yeah.
But it typically starts on 12th night. And you'll hear people say 12th night a lot in the New Orleans area because that's when Mardi Gras starts. It's January 6th. And it'll start then and go all the way until Fat Tuesday.
Okay.
And so about 2 months. And that's why you'll hear different parades will start, and they're not quite as popular or as big or as crazy as those 5 days before Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday. But they have their own like little traditions leading up to those 2 months.
So is that really where it started from the very beginning, right? 1703-ish, somewhere around there is like, they were just like, hey, we want to have a good time before Lent.
So Mardi Gras has always been something from the French culture, the Italian culture, the Spanish culture, because of the Catholicism and again, celebrating the abundance before Lent. So it was brought over, if you know anything about New Orleans, it goes under French rule, Spanish rule, back to French rule, then to America. So it's brought over by the colonialists, right, who are bringing over their traditions as they come to the new land. And so it's first celebrated in 1699.
Oh, wow.
And it's that early celebrated because it's just like a recognition of some people from the old world who are celebrating their religious tradition.
Now, is it true? I remember, I think, because we went last year. No, we didn't go for Mardi Gras last year. Like we went the week prior and we went with our friends and we got to see the floats because, again, they're part of the cruise. You know, our friends they're from there and have family history there and have been involved in the Bacchus crew and for quite a long time. But one of the things I remember hearing was, isn't it Mobile or something like that claims the first Mardi Gras? So is that kind of like still a contentious thing?
It's a contentious thing. So yes, Mobile. So you have to realize New Orleans wasn't really a established city, and Mobile was a part of the Louisiana Territory, and it was more of an established city. And so they claimed the first ever Mardi Gras celebration. Now, the first parade didn't start until 1837.
Okay.
But Mobile will claim this first celebration in the early 1700s.
Because I think even before we went down, and I was looking up something online, you know, you'll see online ads for come to the oldest, Mardi Gras celebration, in America, and it's in Mobile.
Yes, Mobile claims it.
Yeah.
Although New Orleans is probably the biggest and what more people think of when they think of Mardi Gras. And the first Mardi Gras parade happens in New Orleans in 1737. So you get the first, in 1730, you get the first celebration with dance and masking and the costuming, which is really a lot like Carnival. So if you think of Carnival, that happens even today in like Venice or Brazil, again, all with this Catholicism and celebrating the abundance before Lent, where the masking happens. And the masking still happens in New Orleans. And what's the significance of the masking? It basically erases that social hierarchy. You kind of hide your face, and so everyone's on an equal playing field. We all are celebrating together, kind of how you would go to heaven. Like when we go to heaven, we're all going to be on the same playing field. So that's kind of how they look at it. You're masking yourself so no one knows where you are on the social ladder, and we're all the same, and we can all party the same.
And I believe they even eventually passed a law that said if you're riding on the floats, you have to be masked.
Yes. And again, that it's just part of that tradition and fun. Yeah. Like we knew the people that we knew who were going to be in the parade.
So just to kind of put it out there, went down to Mardi Gras. We did a couple days. We got that on a Friday night. And it was luckily for us, it was over a long weekend. And I took an extra day vacation from work. Got there down on Friday night, hung out with friends Friday night. And then we saw two different parades. We saw the first parade Saturday morning, and that was kind of a little more low key, a little more family friendly. But they were, 99% of the people that I saw on the floats were masked. They were wearing a mask the whole time. Now, I did see a fair amount of people that weren't wearing masks. And I was kind of wondering, do they actually enforce that? I'm not sure. And then as the days went on, I saw less and less people with masks, more so if it was nighttime. But so I did see people without masks, but it was a full-blown thing.
So it's funny, they wear like these masks to cover their eyes and then like a fabric drape over their face, I guess, to help them breathe. But like you said, some wear it and they're very uniform because they're wearing all these same kind of costumes, and then some don't. I don't know who would actually enforce these rules.
I'm sure it's not enforced.
And how it works. But what's really significant about Mardi Gras is the throws.
Yeah.
So we got to experience this for the first time. I have a throw here just so you can kind of see, like, it's beads, but these can be pretty significant and pretty heavy.
Yeah. So for our listeners, Jen's holding up what looks like a Mr. T chain, like full on thick plastic chains with, the classic Mardi Gras colors of gold, green, and purple.
Yeah. And those colors are significant as well. The purple stands for justice. The green stands for faith, and the gold for power. So you can think of the purple has like that royal color, right? And so it's the justice with the royalty and finding justice in the world. The green for your faith, right? This is like basically based on a Catholic holiday. And then the gold is for power, that we all hold the same power. And so those are the three colors of Mardi Gras. So you'll see those three colors everywhere. And people will throw these chains. People will throw socks.
Yeah,
people will
all sorts of stuff.
Cups. And they become very significant. People want these throws. And we went with nothing. We left with bags of things.
It was crazy.
So many beads, so many cups. We got off with 30 pairs of socks. And we were handed different cool things, sunglasses. They do all these little niche-y kind of things.
Now, I looked it up. So some of the original throws, the whole beads thing didn't really start till the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And so it didn't really start till the 60s. So crews used to throw sugar-coated almonds as I guess part of the thing that they're kind of throwing out, right? Because again, you're out there celebrating abundance, and then glass beads. So glass beads have actually been around for quite a while. And I think we were able to get one or two little things of glass beads. And they throw them in little packets, right? Because you're not throwing glass at people. But that's what they used to throw. Yeah,
and you got to be aware because they can hit you.
I got drilled right in the left side of my face one night. I wasn't looking, and I think they were throwing these like bouncy ball things that would light up at night.
Yes.
And I got just drilled right in the left eye, and everybody saw it because I just wasn't looking at all. So after that, my head was on a swivel anytime a float was going by.
So what's significant too is if it's a night parade, they throw a lot of light up beads.
Yeah, those are fun.
Or light up things that you can hold. And so you have some people wear them, and it's a lot of fun. But there's so much left behind. And I read that they collect these beads afterwards because they don't want them getting into, the drainage system, and they recycle them for next year. But it is a lot of fun. It was a lot of beads. But to be in New Orleans and celebrate this, to be in the place where this originated, there's a lot of tradition there. And so it's not just the parades, and different parades have different traditions. There's the Iris parade with just women on the floats. There's the Bacchus parade with just men on the floats. And then sometimes they're associated with these balls, like these fancy events that you dress up. And so we went to the Bacchus ball, and Scott wore his uniform. I wore a gown, and you still stand there and collect your throws in your dressy outfits.
And it was wild. I was telling a couple people about the Bacchus ball. It exceeded any and all of my expectations because I kind of figured a big party. I figured a few hundred people, maybe 1,000 on the big side. Someone told me there was 18,000 people at this ball. And it was so interesting because if for our listeners and for our watchers, picture just the largest convention center that you can think of with all dividers cleared out. So it's just this massive, massive space. Like we could barely see to the other end of it because they had it set up. I think there was like maybe 1,000 tables. There was a center section and outside sections, and they could actually they could tow the actual floats into this convention center and do a loop around the center section of the tables where we were. So we were like in between the loop of floats as they were coming through with all the bands. It was so overwhelming. It was fun. And then they had these bands, and I'll talk about the bands because our listeners will appreciate some of the bands that they got and some of the singers that they got, but it was wild.
So the bigger balls, I use that word. So Bacchus, Orpheus, they get these celebrities to be like their kings of the ball. And so, or kings of the parade.
Yep.
So you get your Bacchus king, you get your Orpheus king. And this year we had a Putty from Seinfeld. And I know Orpheus had Noah Wiley from ER and the new Pit Show.
And I mean, and they had like a second celebrity.
Yes.
Is Anthony, whatever, the Falcon who took over the Captain America role.
I don't know his name.
Anthony something.
Yes.
Another actor.
So, and then they get very famous performers to perform music for the night. And there's been like ZZ Top. And this year we had Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray.
Jefferson Starship. Which was, I was sitting there and I was like, man, these guys are really, really good. They sound just like the music. And our friend turns to us like, that's the band.
Yes.
I was like, no freaking way.
And what's neat is, in 2020, they estimated 1.4 million visitors come in for this.
Really?
So this is like when people say, I did Mardi Gras, they think New Orleans, right? They think, because Mardi Gras celebrations happen all over the South, really. But when you say, I went to Mardi Gras, people will think you went to New Orleans. And it is a big tourist thing for New Orleans.
And one of the things that I mentioned in kind of my introduction story was some of the torchbearers. Mm-hmm. And that's actually like a very historically accurate thing because they would carry it because they have to see, right? They're doing this at night. And we had actually seen in one of the parades that we watched, I can't remember which one, we saw these guys walking around kind of in like an homage.
Yeah, it was in Demion. It was the night one.
It was the night one. But they had these like propane tanks strapped to their back and they had these like big old torches. And so it was kind of it. And you were telling me like, oh no, that's what they used to do way back in the day because they'd have to see at night. And so that was actually like a thing that they actually continue to do for these night parades. So they still try to keep some of that history there as we saw when we went down here in 2026.
Yeah, it was super neat to be a part of it all and to be a part of all of the mass crowds. So you got to be ready. There's a lot of people. Like I said, 1.4 million people, but everyone seemed to get along. But we saw everyone really getting along. They had a lot of law enforcement out there making sure that things were getting along. But it was really a lot of fun and to be a part of. But it's a lot. You got to kind of pace yourself. We walked about 10,000 steps every day. It's a lot of walking. And it's very loud. So Scott was talking about the bands. They have these marching bands that are basically scattered within the floats. And marching bands from local New Orleans high schools. We saw some from Memphis high schools. And they always seem to stop right beside us with the drums and the horns.
It's so loud.
And it's very loud. So you have to be, if you see any of the videos that we have on Instagram, I have earplugs in the whole time. But another tradition we partook of is the king cake.
Yeah.
So they have this cake that is very traditional New Orleans, and it has the frosting with the 3 colors on it. And it's like a pastry. It tastes a lot like a cinnamon roll. And they put a little glass baby Jesus in the king cake. And
I think it's plastic nowadays, but
yeah, I think it used to be glass.
Yeah.
And if you got the baby Jesus in your slice, it's supposed to bring you good luck. And then you're supposed to throw the next party. You're supposed to bake the next king cake and throw the next party. So we did not get the baby Jesus, but it's kind of fun if you ever have a king cake that's inside there.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Like I've worked with people in the Navy who are from New Orleans, and they're always, you end up in some Navy building and around Mardi Gras, somebody's from New Orleans, and there always ends up being a king cake somewhere in the spaces.
Yeah, exactly. And so we had to have it. We had to try it. Of course, all the other Southern fare, we had some great crawfish bread and gumbo and eating all of the seafood that was there. But we also, there's a lot of history in New Orleans. We have a whole video of the history, and we were going to do some of the cemeteries there. But because of all the tourism, they have shut down the ones that are closer to the city for public access. And you can only visit them, especially St. Louis No. 1, which is the most famous one that is the closest to the downtown of New Orleans. You can only access it by a tour now. And you can imagine the tours were pretty sold out and expensive for this time of year. But we wanted to talk about that history of burying people above ground, because a lot of this Lent and Mardi Gras, you're kind of dancing around this idea of heaven and the afterlife. And that's a very big New Orleans thing. And New Orleans started burying people, or started the cemeteries in 1780s, the late 1780s, but they didn't start burying people above ground till 1805. And they started doing that because of the water table there, because how close they are to sea level, actually kind of below sea level. And they would bury people in the ground, but the first flood or hurricane, grandma would go floating down the street, right? So they would be like, oh my gosh, we have to get her and put her back in the ground. And so what was the better way to do this is they brought over this idea from France, as you can imagine, right? It's very French, Spanish influence there, and started to bury people above ground in these tombs. And if you know anything about New Orleans and humidity and heat, these tombs really act like ovens, like brick ovens. And after a year and a day, they will open the tomb back up and bring the bones out. And it's another kind of party because that's all that's left of you after a year and a day. It doesn't matter when they put you in. A year and a day later, if your body goes through an entire Louisiana summer, after a year and a day, all that's left of you is bones after that time. Everything has basically disintegrated off of you.
Yeah.
And so they bring the bones back out, celebrate that, and put the bones back into the chute. And then they reuse the tomb for families. So you'll see these tombs in New Orleans, family tombs that have 20, 30 names. All those bones are in there. And at one time, the body was in there. And that is their family tomb. And so they really treat these cemeteries much like if you saw our video of Père Lachaise, like little neighborhoods with little streets and little houses of your family. And you can walk through them and celebrate them. And long-term tombs, long-term family tombs that have been there that are part of the original families of New Orleans. We were not able to do that, but it's very much a part of their culture there and a part of that whole, I would say, the mystery of the city. So just know that we were out there celebrating and we got to be a part of it. It will probably be our last time doing that because it's a lot and we had to be away from the kids for 4 days and it's an expense. So you can think of the crews that do this. It's an expense to do this as well. But they were celebrating America 250. And so that's really what brought us out there. And I actually made a Walk with History bead specifically for it. And I walked around with this. And so they had a lot of America 250 beads and themed floats. And that's really why we were there, to celebrate America 250 at Mardi Gras. It was also coincided with our wedding anniversary, but it was really great for Walk with History to be there. We were recognized, so that was super fun as well. But if you want to know like a little history of it, if you're interested in going, hopefully we have some ideas for you. My recommendation, if you go to Mardi Gras, is go with someone who has done it and go with someone who has some access to something and has plans. It is nicer to be on the grandstands. It's nicer to be kind of higher up. It's kind of nice to know where's good places to eat, where's good places to stay. If you went just for free for all, you probably would be just fine. The city seems ready, but it's kind of nice to have all of that planned out for you. So again, follow us on Instagram. You'll see more of that, of how we experienced Mardi Gras. But happy Fat Tuesday to everybody. Happy Lent to everybody and leading up to Easter.
As the last float of our journey rounds the corner and the flashing lights fade into the distance, we're left with more than just a sidewalk covered in plastic beads and glitter. We've seen Mardi Gras evolve from a desperate act of remembrance in a swampy outpost to a gilded, dangerous masquerade, and finally into the massive, inclusive heartbeat of the Gulf Coast. It's a holiday that has survived fires, yellow fever outbreaks, world wars, and hurricanes. Why does it persist? Because at its core, Mardi Gras isn't about the inappropriate chaos of the past or the commercial spectacle of the present. It's about defiance. It's the collective decision of a people to stop time, put on a mask, and celebrate the sheer joy of being alive before the Lent of everyday life begins again tomorrow. Whether you're catching beads in New Orleans or catching celebrations in the Cajun countryside, you aren't just watching a parade. You're stepping into a 300-year-old dance. So next time you see a stray purple bead caught in the cracks of a sidewalk, remember, the party never truly ends. It just waits for next year. I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
This has been a Walk with History production. Talk with History is created and hosted by me, Scott Benny. Episode researched by Jennifer Benny. Check out the show notes for links and references mentioned in this episode. Talk with History is supported by our community at thehistoryroadtrip.com. Our eternal thanks go out to our lifetime members to help keep us going. Thank you to Doug Liberty, Larry Myers, Patrick Benny, Gail Cooper, Christy Coates, Calvin Gifford, Courtney Sanini, Gene Milne, Larry Mitchell, Tommy Anderson, Susan Sulis, Bruce Lynch, Dino Garner, Mark Barrett, Don Kennedy, and John Simpson. Make sure you hit that follow button in that podcast player, and we'll talk to you next time.